Alright, and welcome to this edition of FilterForge tutorial. I'm going to show you how to use the group function in the filter editor. You can see we got this find edges filter that I created, and I grouped it so it's actually one functioning component. It's got the threshold for the image. You can invert the image. You got the black and white function. This was just a quick filter that I put together so you can see how the group function works in the editor. So let's start editing. So you can go up to the filter editor. You can create a new filter, but I'll show you how this one looks in the editor. And this is our group component. And one of the cool things about the grouping is you can basically create your own component, just as any component you see in the component list. What you can also do is you can name your own controls for your group, and if you don't have any scripting skills, this is very handy. Now inside the actual group itself, the edge detector is not too fairly complex of a filter. But what grouping does is, if you do have a lot of components in certain functionality of a filter that you're using, you can group those components so that way you only have to deal with one component and you don't have to remember how you put that filter together. So we'll go ahead and build this one real quick and I'll walk you through it. First thing you want to do is grab your image component. So we'll drag that out. And we're going to do a little bit of RGB math. So to start, you want to grab the derivative. And you want to connect the image to both the source and the angle. So you get something like this. And then from here, you want to grab your sign. And then for the units on that component, you want to select degrees. And then right there, it'll give you a nice edge on that one. And then from there, I'm going to go up to adjustments, select the invert, drag that out, and connect that. And then to get our threshold, we're going to select our threshold. This will give us our threshold. Give us a nice look on it. Alright, so what we're going to do now is we're going to actually want to connect the invert to the low and the threshold. But what we want to do is since we want to switch between the color, the black and white, we'll have to put a switch in between. So we'll grab a switch component, and as you can see on the low, on the threshold component, that's black. So what we want to do is on one of these sources, we want to make the color black. So that will take the place of the black on the low and the threshold component. And then the invert we're going to put on source 1. You'll see why in a minute. And then the switch component we're going to connect to the low. So now when we select either number 1 or number 2, it's going to give us either between the color or the black and white. Alright, now our on our group component, our find edges group component, made a couple places where we can put some different controls, like the invert, color black and white, and a threshold. So what you want to do now to make our controls is we'll start with the switch, and this will be our switch between the color and the black and white. So you can drag one of those, connect it to the switch, select your slider control, and over on remapping, check that and you'll see this pops up. So you want to select that, and this part doesn't really matter at this point because we're just kind of like playing around with it. But we're going to go unchecked as 1 and then checked as 2. So when the box is checked, we're going to be black and white. When the box is unchecked, it's going to be color. So you can go ahead and name your control, and this is what you'll actually see out. This name we'll see outside of the group. So you can say color black white. So now we're actually going to see the name of the slider out of the checkbox outside of the box and outside of the group, just as this other one. So now for our threshold, we'll just grab a slider control, connect that. We're not going to actually do anything else with that. Same with the invert. You can grab a checkbox control and connect it to the invert. So now it should look something like this. So now all these controls that you have connected, you will be able to control these outside of the group. And these are the only things that you will be able to control. And since we have our image component connected, it'll automatically load an image. So now once you have all this in place, you can select the first component, go select subtree, or you can select the whole thing by just clicking and dragging. And then you can right click, go with group, or you can just click up here on the button and say group. And as you can see, here's all of our controls that we named. And if you click the group, you can go down here and say edge. You can name it whatever you want. That way we got our controls right here. Now you have to set up your sliders again, because the sliders that we set up inside this group is only for the inside of the group. And it makes our controls right here. So we'll have to set these up again. And this color black and white, you don't have to set up again because we set it up inside the group and we already defined what this function does. Like that. There we go. Now you can save it as your Now you can save the filter. On edges group. We'll save it. So now when you're actually in the main window of FilterForge, you can control it. So now the cool thing about the groups is if you're making another filter, you don't have a bunch of components that you have to copy and paste. You can just take the group, copy it, and paste it into your new filter. Or as I said, if you have a bunch of components, you don't have to try to remember how you created that filter, because you already have it inside a group. Or if we have a filter that uses a lot of like one functionality, like this group, you can make an instance of it. And the instance, if you edit one group, such as this one, and let's say we'll take out the switch component, and you go back to your group, look what happened to our instance. So this is cool if you have, like I said, if you're using this and this functionality that you're editing and you have it twice in one filter, it'll edit each instance of that group. So anything you change on the first group will also reflect on the other group. I'll show you again. We'll get these out of the way. For instance, we'll take out the threshold on this group, and it'll also change on this group right here. So we'll just go to this one, and we'll take out the threshold and watch what happens to the other group as well. It actually changed this group as well. So it comes in handy, especially if you have a big filter with a lot of components. You don't have to go through and change every single component of the same function. That's it for this one.